Both Republicans and Democrats are signaling they want the Senate impeachment trial against former President Trump to finish quickly. Proceedings will begin Tuesday with the debate and vote on whether it's even constitutional to impeach a president who has already left office. Opening arguments are set for Wednesday. Each side has up to 16 hours to present evidence. Mr. Trump has declined an invitation to testify. House impeachment managers are instead expected to rely heavily on videos from the January 6th Capitol attack. Mr. Trump's defense team says they'll be showing videos of their own. A lead attorney told Fox News he plans to use Democrats' words against them. If all 50 Democrats vote in favor, they would still need 17 of their GOP colleagues to convict the former president. That, however, seems unlikely after 45 Republicans voted to dismiss the case entirely last month. Stewart Verdery served as general counsel to the Republican Senate Majority Whip in 1999 during the Clinton impeachment trial. He also served as the Assistant Secretary for Policy and Planning at the Department of Homeland Security under President George W. Bush. Stewart is now the CEO and founder of Monument Advocacy. It's a government relations and communications firm. And Stewart joins us now. Stewart, welcome. Thanks for being with us. We already have a good idea of the outcome of this impeachment trial. It doesn't seem enough Republicans will support impeachment to convict the president. Why would Democrats continue to press forward?
Well, thanks for having me. It's hard to believe we're back where we were about a year ago with the impeachment trial about to start. And, while I think the facts of the case are wildly different, it looks like this may play out a similar way to the 1999 Clinton impeachment trial, where the House managers really wanted to have real witnesses to help prove their case, but it looks like the Senate may not go along. So we're going to have a real battle royale amongst the Democrats as to how many of them want to plow forward with a more fulsome case with witnesses.
Well, as we mentioned, Mr. Trump declined to testify. Whom and what do you anticipate in terms of witnesses and evidence?
Well, you can imagine several types of witnesses that would really be able to bring some light to bear on the case. Rioters who actually went to the Capitol, from the rally to the Capitol, political operatives who helped plan the rally and other activities that day, police in the Capitol who heard protesters and rioters, advisors of the president. There's a number of people who have evidence, so to speak, on whether there's culpability here. But the key thing to remember, it sounds like a criminal trial, but it's not. It's a political trial. And it's especially strange that the jurors here, the 100 senators, they get to decide what type of evidence they want to hear, if any. The trial I worked on with President Clinton, we only heard 3 witnesses because the independent counsel had done a lengthy investigation. And the last impeachment trial a year ago heard no witnesses. So it'll be very interesting to see if they can convince the jurors that they want to hear any types of these witnesses after the opening arguments.
I want to ask you more about that in just a moment, but former President Trump's legal team has filed a 78-page impeachment trial brief, releasing it earlier today, and the team plans to argue that it is unconstitutional to impeach a former president. They also plan to highlight comments made by Democrats. What is behind that approach?
Well, I mean, they're trying to get a legal technicality that the timing of the president's, the end of his term and the case don't match up. I think legal authorities are split here. We've seen good arguments from noted legal scholars in both directions. At the end of the day, the Senate gets to decide, and the test vote that Senator Paul teed up a few weeks ago would indicate that there's, easily 1/3 of the Senate that says this is not constitutional. But you're going to have arguments about that. And while it's not likely, I suppose it could convince people to change their minds as to what they want to hear about the case. And so we'll see how that goes. I don't expect that arguments that the Trump legal team is going to make about what Democrats have done in the past, things they've said that are inappropriate or perhaps, led to protests and other matters are really going to have a whole lot to do with the end game here. This was a unique event in the nation's history. I used to work in the Capitol, and the idea that protesters and rioters could be sitting on the same Senate floor where the senators are going to be hearing this case is appalling to me. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to decide, is it worth convicting a president who's already left office? That's up to the senators.
So, Stewart, with that in mind, I want to get your take on some quotes from a few of the defendants charged in the Capitol attack or documents in some of these cases. For Jorge Riley, he posted a video the morning of the 6th saying, quote, I'm here to see what my president called me to D.C. for. In another case, a document reads, quote, Wilmer Montano admitted that he flew from Houston to the U.S. Capitol to participate in the January 6, 2021 protests because he believed election fraud may have compromised his vote. And a document from a third case reads, quote, Jay Spencer stated that the now former president was saying we're going to march to the Capitol. They then agreed with each other to walk towards the Capitol. So, Stuart, what is the challenge here for both Democrats and Republicans, given what you laid out? Not only the kind of evidence that's going to be presented, but also the standard here for an impeachment conviction.
Well, this was a regular criminal trial like you might see on Law and Order or some other show. There's a lot of evidence here, and the state of mind of the protesters and the rioters would be clearly relevant here. And again, probably also what was going on at the White House ahead of the events on January 6th would be relevant. You can imagine elaborate fact-finding going on about, planning and financing of people coming to Washington and what their mindset was. I believe the House managers are going to put together a pretty effective case of people saying that they were incited to go into the building. But again, we are not ending up with a jury of 12 of the president's peers. We're ending up with a jury of 100 senators. And if they've made up their mind that it's not worth going down this road to have actual witnesses, they're going to have to rely on this video testimony and other types of things that are already in the public record.
Stuart, there are going to be some folks listening that will hear that and still not understand that ultimately this is a political exercise, not, as you note, a court of law. Can you explain once more just the difference between what is considered quote unquote criminal and what is impeachable? And for those folks who are wondering, if it doesn't rise to the standard of impeachable in some senators' minds, what should be the remedy for what took place on January 6th and President Trump's role in it?
Right. Well, the founders included the impeachment tool where the House impeaches and the Senate convicts as a kind of last gasp option for the elected members of our legislature to remove a high-ranking official, the president or otherwise, from office. And it was obviously brought over from our British system that we inherited and improved upon. It's only been used a couple times. It takes a 2/3 vote to convict, so it's meant to be a high bar. But the definitions are very vague. High crimes and misdemeanors are that's the part of the clause that we're occupying now, and that's really in the eye of the beholder. I do believe that if this was, with 6 months or 12 months or 3 years to go in the president's term, people will be looking at it a lot differently than the fact he's already left office and is no longer controlling the powers of the presidency. It also might be different if it was a secret ballot, which it is not. They have to stand up and vote. And so, this is an unusual tool, and this is going to be a very unusual trial. It looks like the die is cast to some extent on how this is going to go. It's going to maybe run for a week or so. If this was a courtroom, it would be a lot different than the Senate chamber.
Right. As you note, though, the framers very much left the idea of what constitutes a quote unquote impeachable offense, as you say, in the eye of the beholder. All right. Stewart Verdery. Stewart, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.